a really, really cool image. So the cool thing that you can do about math art is that if you try to draw this by hand, like, good luck. Like, it's almost impossible. It's like not really feasible. It is the ratio of the bottom of the triangle to the sides of the triangle, and it's kind of like this magic number, like Da Vinci had an obsession with when he was making art. Like, I forget the exact name of the actual painting, but it's the one where like the guy's going like this, and it shows like the star like going between like his arms. Yeah, that one. So he had this like obsession with the golden ratio. It's kind of like this math, like this crazy math thing that kind of exists in nature and whatnot. So how does this apply to the game? This is a screen of the game. So this is kind of a picture of the second picture of the presentation at a different angle. So what this mechanic is the narrative of Desolus is implicit, so there's no like tutorial text popping out and you saying like, hey, like press A to move, or like press B to do this. So instead you have this thing called the eye, which like it's kind of like almost the eye of Sauron. So you hit a button and you stare into these statues and it displays text. And eventually I want to replace the text with hieroglyphics, but I haven't really come up with a system yet, so you'll kind of have to like figure out like what the hieroglyphics mean, like this alien language, and it also means I don't have to pay for localization because there's no text in the game. So that's kind of like a bonus. So in terms of like the fractal thing, the golden ratio, and the Fibonacci, so this is actually a particle system. You can actually see it in game. It's not animated right now. But what this does is you have a bunch of different particles and you apply like a physics function on the particles and it draws like pretty cool shapes. So like if I were to try to do this by hand, it would take me forever and I don't really know how to do it by hand, so I kind of do it just by messing with particles. So this code actually makes the statues in here. So instead of like using traditional 3D modeling programs, I just do everything procedurally with this code. Now the code probably doesn't mean anything to you, but basically what it does is it draws each individual point of a geometrical shape, and then it just like puts everything together and renders it, and you make like really cool, interesting shapes. So this is another screenshot of a level that actually isn't in the demo. These are all kind of golden triangles, like over here. Not like literally golden, but the golden as in like the golden ratio triangles. So kind of the way that I set up the scene is like a little bit mathematically, like in terms of composition, but it ends up with really interesting results. So another good thing, like I'm doing this by myself, you have modularity in design, so you're just like, you have so much content, how do you create it? This single scene is composed of only about, like, I would say 6 entities. Like you have these objects over here create the black hole, and these particles are absorbed by the black hole, which removes these red particles over here. So this is kind of like a puzzle. Like if you actually play the game, it kind of teaches you as you play to kind of understand, like from a visual vocabulary, what you're looking at in this picture. So pretty much I have a set of maybe like 12 assets so far, and I just kind of like mix them in different combinations for like the actual game itself to make interesting levels. So this is kind of analysis of like using that golden ratio thing I was talking about, of how that level is structured. So you can kind of see the back of it over here. This is a golden rectangle, so again, going back to the golden ratio, like you have some pretty weird things you can do with perspective, like if we go back to, there you go. So like see how these barriers will line up perfectly from perspective? That's actually due to the way that the golden ratio works, so you can do like some really interesting perspective type puzzles. And in the corner, you can't read the text, but this is kind of like how I organize scenes. You just have like about 8 of the same asset arranged in a shape, so it's kind of like Legos, how you build the levels. And then you have like a bunch of different objects we can actually play the puzzle with. So how the game is made in terms of design, I kind of like reverse engineer my favorite games. So like I said, the game's kind of like Metroid Prime and Portal. Like I kind of took the Valve methodology of designing levels, like in terms of introducing players slowly to mechanics, and then playtesting like with nights like tonight, and seeing how people enjoy the game, and then revising those levels. So it's kind of like you almost have this scientific way of game design, which is pretty cool. So that's how Portal was designed. Metroid Prime and Zelda Ocarina of Time are also 2 of my favorite games. A lot of the Ocarina of Time aspects come from like how the levels are designed from a macro perspective. So if you imagine in Zelda you have like various different dungeons, the way that the levels are designed and the world is designed is you have a kind of a set of a bunch of different dungeons, but the dungeons are actually the world themselves. So you kind of have like this huge open world dungeon filled with mini dungeons, which is pretty cool. So this was a picture from about like 4 years ago. This game started out as just like a really crappy like Zelda ripoff with like Microsoft Paint graphics, and I kind of just kept working on it over time. And I usually say I've been working on this for either 4 months or 4 years. 4 months is where the current iteration of this game was created, and 4 years is kind of where I began. So this was in like October 2011 when I just started game design in general. So that's it for the talk. You can look about my game more at Desolus.com. You can follow me on Twitter at DesolusDev. And I have a dev blog on TickSource that I usually update about once a week. If you're not on TickSource as an indie, you really should be. That's where like all the really cool stuff comes from. Like Notch started out on TickSource with Minecraft. Phil Fish did with Fez. There's just a lot of really, really cool games on the website, so you should check it out.